Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown, where to go over the MLB game schedule for Friday, July 14th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, we're back and ready to go. Here are the games for Friday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the San Diego Padres taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Yu Darvish and Christopher Sanchez are your starters. Yu Darvish has struggled overall in 2023, but especially on the road where he's got an ERA above 6. He's got less than a strikeout per inning at 35 Ks and 38 innings of work. I don't love him in this spot, but I do think the Philadelphia Phillies pitching staff, that rotation, and that bullpen looking pretty dangerous going into the second half of the season. And Christopher Sanchez, who had, originally was viewed as a long reliever or an opener, he's actually pitched back-to-back quality starts going into the All-Star break. His last two games, his last start was a 6-inning, 1-run performance against the Tampa Bay Rays in a 3-1 Phillies win. And the Phillies bullpen behind him in the last 30 days, the best Sierra in baseball at 2.76, one of the best ERAs in baseball at 2.52. I think the Phillies win this game at home. Give me the Phillies on the money line. Next up, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Sandy Alcantara and Dean Kramer are your starters. Obviously, it was a first half to forget for Sandy Alcantara. The Marlins played great baseball as a team, but Alcantara, the reigning Cy Young winner in the National League, he went 3-7 with a 4.72 ERA in 114 innings overall, but in 54 innings on the road, an even steeper 5.00 ERA. But we did see, we started to see some signs from Sandy in his last couple of outings, other than that game against the Braves, where we know the Braves are just a very tough lineup. We saw against the Red Sox at Fenway Park on June 27th, and the start against the Phillies on July 7th. Sandy went a combined 13 2/3 innings, giving up only 2 earned runs. He had 10 strikeouts. He was keeping the ball on the ground. I do think Sandy in the second half of the season will improve his game, and I do think he has the much higher ceiling in his game compared to Dean Kramer, who struggled as well in the first half, 4.78 ERA. The sharp contact was really hurting him at the end of that first half. He was giving up a lot of home runs, and in 3 of his last 4 starts, 2+ home runs, at least 1 home run in all 4 of those games. His strikeout numbers were improving, but he still was giving up a good amount of earned runs, and I do think he struggles here. He has struggled more so at Camden Yards with a 5.51 ERA. I just think we're getting a really good price with Sandy Alcantara here. Plus money with a competitive Marlins team with a solid bullpen, a good lineup. I'm going to take that plus money right now with the Miami Marlins. Next up, we go to the Apple TV game between the San Francisco Giants and the Pittsburgh Pirates, 7:05 Eastern on Apple TV+. Ross Stripling and Rich Hill are your projected starters. At the beginning of the season, the Giants didn't have the best numbers against lefties, and a lot of that was because they were striking out a ton. But in the last 30 days, those strikeout numbers against left-handed pitchers, it's really decreased quite a bit. When you look at the last month, San Francisco's actually got a top 10 lowest strikeout rate against lefties at 21.5%. Their OPS and isolated power numbers are improving slightly, and I do think, Rich Hill on the other side, of 4.78 ERA in the season, is a good matchup for San Francisco's bats. I think they'll be able to get to Rich Hill, who gave up 5 earned runs in his most recent outing against the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Pirates are 1-4 on the money line in his last 5 games. On the other side, Ross Stripling, not my favorite option to back, that's for sure, but he is a righty, and the Pirates, going into the All-Star break, really struggled against right-handed pitchers. In the last month, Pittsburgh was dead last in baseball in WRC plus against righties. Very bad OPS and isolated power numbers as well. I got to take the San Francisco Giants here on the money line at PNC Park. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. No official starters listed for this game. I am seeing Chris Bassett and Tommy Henry rumored on a few different websites as potential options, and that's one of the challenging things about handicapping the first day back from the break is there's usually some information pitching-wise. It's kind of all over the place, so we see that with a few games for Friday. We'll get through it together, and if these are the starting pitchers for this game, I do lean towards the Blue Jays on the money line. Tommy Henry, even though he's got a 4-0 record on the road, he hasn't been the best away from Chase Field. 4.73 ERA in about 32 innings, only 27 strikeouts, 8 home runs allowed. His control's been off as well. I don't love him in this matchup, even though the Blue Jays have not been great against lefties as of late. But Chris Bassett on the other side, he's got a 4-1 record, 2.41 ERA when he's pitching at Rogers Center, 54 strikeouts and 52 1/3 innings of work. He has not fared too well on the road, where he's got an ERA above 5 on the year, 5.81. But at home, Bassett is worth a bet, in my opinion. And when you look at the Arizona Diamondbacks before the All-Star break, this was a team not really playing their best baseball. They had some winnable matchups against teams with losing records like the Mets, Pirates, and Angels, but they ended their final 11 games before the break with a 4-7 record in those 11 games. So Don't love Arizona going into this, series with Toronto. I like the Blue Jays to win this game, so give me Toronto on the money line. Next up, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the New York Mets. This is a pretty crucial series for both teams, but more so the New York Mets, who are making a pretty, nice run towards the end of that first half of the season. Didn't play great in San Diego against the Padres, but they have a chance to redeem themselves here against one of the best teams in the league, in the Dodgers. And, Julio Urias, this is a winnable game for the Mets, as Urias has struggled on the road. He's got good numbers at Dodger Stadium, but on the road, an 8.44 ERA, a 1-4 record in 26 2/3 innings. He just has not been good on the road at all. His last road start against the Kansas City Royals, of all teams, gives up in 3 innings of work 5 earned runs. But the thing for me is the New York Mets have also, notably not been a great lineup against lefties this year, last year. I do think Urias could give the Dodgers 5, maybe 6 decent innings. I also think Verlander is going to pitch well in this game for the Mets. A 2.19 ERA at Citi Field so far this year in 37 innings of work, only 8 walks with 33 strikeouts and 4 home runs. He's been solid at Citi Field for the Mets. His last start against the Padres was on the road. He went 6 innings, 2 runs, so a quality start there. Makes it back-to-back quality starts for Verlander, and in his last 3 games combined, only those 2 earned runs against San Diego. So he's in really good form going into the second half of the season. The Mets will need him to be, a really good starting pitching option in the second half if they want to make a run at a wild card spot. But in this game, I think we'll see a low-scoring game, probably a pretty entertaining one as well, and a pretty entertaining weekend series. I'm going to lean towards the under in this one between the Dodgers and Mets. Next up, we see the big-time NL Central rivalry series between the Brewers and Reds. Corbin Burnes and Graham Ashcraft are your starters. Now, not only is this series, super important for playoff implications for the NL Central division winner, but, this NL Central division could be a one playoff team division, as, over the last couple of years, this has not been the best division in baseball. We know the NL West has been very competitive, with the Giants, Padres, and Dodgers right in the mix, and now Arizona this season playing good baseball. In the NL East, you got the Braves, Phillies, and Mets usually playing good ball, and now the Marlins this year are currently in the number 1 wildcard spot. So the loser, the team that does not win this division between Milwaukee and Cincinnati, could be on the outside looking in when we get to playoff baseball in October. But, in this game, I think the Brewers have the advantage, even though Graham Ashcraft really improved his game, in his last couple of starts before the break, where he went 12 2/3 innings, giving up only 2 runs. I was still pretty concerned with his last start against the Nationals, where he went 6 innings, he only gave up 1 run, but he only had 2 strikeouts. He had 3 walks allowed, 7 base hits, and that was on the road, where we know Ashcraft has really struggled at Great American Ballpark. But in that game, Washington was just not good enough with runners in scoring position. They had plenty of opportunities, plenty of runners on against Ashcraft, and the Brewers are a team that's already faced Ashcraft. It wasn't too long ago. It was on June 3rd, and it was a bad game for Ashcraft, that's for sure. 4 innings, 9 base hits, 10 earned runs, and 2 home runs in a 10-8 Brewers win. I just don't love Ashcraft in this spot. Corbin Burnes has pitched at Great American Ballpark plenty of times. He's faced the Reds twice this season. He's pitched well in those games. A combined 12 innings of work, giving up a 3.75 ERA. He's got 13 strikeouts in those innings with a low 125 opponent's batting average. I think Burnes is the better option here. I'm going to take the Milwaukee Brewers on the money line in Game 1 of this super important series. Next up, it's the Chicago White Sox taking on the Atlanta Braves. Michael Kopech and Charlie Morton are your starters. I know Charlie Morton hasn't been as good at Truist Park as he has been on the road this year, but I still think he's a good option for Atlanta in this game. Good enough for the Braves to win it and cover the run line in the end. I mean, his last start at home was a really good outing. 5 2/3 innings against the Miami Marlins, a competitive team. 5 strikeouts, no runs, and a 7-0 Braves win. On the other side, Michael Kopech returning from the injury. He was placed on the 15-day IL. His control was off, going into that, before that injury. He had 7 walks allowed in 4 innings against the Angels in his last start on June 27th. I don't love this spot for him facing a Braves team that we know has just absolutely demolished right-handed pitching this season, basically from start to now. And in the last 30 days, they are number 1 in baseball by far in OPS, isolated power. A low strikeout rate to go with it is also really impressive. 18.8% strikeout rate for a power-dependent team that has, the most home runs in baseball. You don't see that very often, but this is how good this Braves offense has been. Give me Atlanta on the run line at Truist Park. Next up, it's the Boston Red Sox taking on the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field. Brian Bayo and Kyle Hendricks are your starters. I think Bayo's the better option on the mound in this game, in better form. Kyle Hendricks' last start, although the Cubs went on to win that game, it wasn't his best outing. 5 2/3 innings, 10 base hits, 4 earned runs, and 2 home runs against the Yankees lineup. Has not been great without Aaron Judge, and Brian Bayo has just been Mr. Consistency and Mr. Efficiency for the Red Sox this year. His last 5 outings, he's gone at least 6 2/3 innings in all 5 of those games. giving up 2 earned runs or fewer in all 5 of those starts. He's faced some tough lineups along the way. His last 2 games against the Rangers and Marlins. He doesn't really strike out a ton of guys, but he keeps the ball on the ground, and he's a pitch-to-contact guy. Doesn't walk a lot of batters, so he's able to pitch deep into ball games, similar to what we saw from Sandy Alcantara last year for the Marlins. And with the starter, even though I do think the Cubs have the better bullpen in this matchup, if a starting pitcher can go 7+ innings to start, he's going to give the Red Sox a really good chance to win a game each and every time, because their relievers that they're having to bring out there are their best options in the 8th and 9th inning to potentially hold a lead. So give me the Boston Red Sox here on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Texas Rangers. Aaron Savale and John Gray are your starters. I like the plus money we're getting here with the Cleveland Guardians, a team that's now in first place in the AL Central with a 45-45 record. Aaron Savale's pitched well as of late. His last start, 7 innings, 9 strikeouts against the Royals in a 3-0 win. In 52 2/3 innings this year, he's got a 2.56 ERA, but even better numbers on the road with a 1.25 ERA. Certainly there's some regression concerns when you look at his expected ERA and his xFIP, but it was nice to see him earn a lot of missed bats in that last start against Kansas City. And he's facing a starting pitcher in John Gray, who's not been in the best form. Going into the break in 12 innings against the Red Sox and Astros, gave up 16 base hits, 9 total runs, 8 of those were earned, 5 walks, and only 6 strikeouts. He's had 4 strikeouts or fewer in all of his last 4 starts. That's a big red flag for me. The Rangers are 1-4 on the money line in those last 5 games. I can't trust the Rangers here at this kind of price. Give me the Guardians on the money line getting that plus money. Next up, it's the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Kansas City Royals. We're going to see Alec Marsh and Tyler Glasnow on the mound in this one. The Rays are huge favorites in this game. I'm seeing some -320s, -330s. You could lay the 1.5 runs or even 2.5 runs with Tampa Bay. I do expect the Rays to win this game and win it pretty convincingly. In the first couple starts for Alec Marsh at the Major League level, the Royals lost 9-3 and 5-0. He gave up in 9 innings of work, 7 earned runs and 3 home runs, 7 walks to go with it. He's got decent strikeout stuff, but his control's off. He gives up a lot of sharp contact. The Rays are a very good lineup against right-handed pitchers. Glasnow just faced these Kansas City Royals. He pitched great baseball in that game. 5 innings, 12 strikeouts, and only 1 earned run in a 3-1 Rays win. For me, it's Rays laying the 2.5 runs or pass altogether. Next up, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. No official starters listed for this game, but similar to that Diamondbacks-Blue Jays game, I am seeing Jack Flaherty and Mackenzie Gore listed as potential options on the mound in this one. And, the news broke during the All-Star break that the Cardinals are more than likely going to be sellers at the trade deadline this year. We know St. Louis has a lot of guys that they can potentially deal, at the deadline. Guys like Nolan Arenado are, one of the more popular names being brought up right now. But Jack Flaherty has not been great at home this year. He's got a 5.86 ERA. He faced these Nationals back on June 19th. He struggled in that game early on, especially. His final line was 6 1/3 innings, 10 base hits, and 6 earned runs. The Cardinals did go on to win that game, but I don't love this matchup for him if they're going to be facing Mackenzie Gore, as the Cardinals have just not been great against lefties this year. I think Gore pitches well in this game. I think he keeps his team competitive in this ball game. I like the Washington Nationals plus the 1.5 runs with a sprinkle on the money line on the road. Next up, we go to Coors Field as the Yankees take on the Rockies. Carlos Rodon and Austin Gomber are your starters. This is an interesting game. I think there's some contradictions to be made in this one, as the Rockies have struggled against lefties this year, that's for sure. But Rodon, he only has 1 start at Coors Field in his career. It was a really bad one. 5 1/3 innings, 6 earned runs, a home run, and 3 walks. He took the loss in that game, and he had a 10.13 ERA in that game. Now on the other side, Austin Gomber, he has struggled overall this year, 6.4 ERA, a 7.84 ERA at Coors, but in his last 3 starts, 2 earned runs allowed in each of those games, going 5+ innings in each of those starts as well. All Rockies wins against the Angels, Tigers, and Giants. Not some bad teams in those, in that mix. So Gomber's been more competitive. Rodon struggled at Coors Field, but when you look at the numbers, the Rockies, like I mentioned, have struggled against lefties. The Yankees have not been great against righties, but they have hit lefties very well in the last month. They're number 1 in baseball in team OPS against lefties, 3rd in isolated power. They have a very low strikeout rate. They're number 1 in WRC+. So they're, you would think that the Yankees have a pretty favorable matchup here. I just worry about Carlos Rodon, so I guess I would lean towards the over and the Yankees on the run line in this game. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Rodon struggles in this start at Coors Field. Next up, it's the Houston Astros taking on the Los Angeles Angels. JP France and Shohei Ohtani are your starters. I think the Angels are plainly overvalued in this game. Shohei Ohtani is a great starting pitcher, one of the best in the American League and in all of baseball, but for the Angels to be -160 in this game, I just don't see it. Ohtani's faced the Astros twice this year. He's faced them a lot of times in the last couple of years, so the Astros batters have seen quite a bit of Shohei Ohtani on the mound, and they were able to get to him in his last start. 6 innings, 8 base hits, 5 total runs, 4 of those were earned, 2 home runs, and a 6-2 Astros win back on June 2nd. Before that, Ohtani pitched really well against the Astros on May 9th, but still, the Astros grabbed the W in the end, 3-1 the final score. The Astros had 3 runs and a home run off Ohtani in that game. I think the Astros have the better lineup, especially without Mike Trout for the Halos. I think they have the better bullpen. Shohei Ohtani is the better starting pitcher, but J.P. France already faced these Angels once. He went 7 innings of 1-run baseball. He's been very good on the road this year, where he's got a 1.95 ERA. I think the wrong team is favored. We're getting a really good price with Houston. Give me the Astros on the money line. Next up, it's the Minnesota Twins taking on the Oakland Athletics. No official starter for Oakland right now. Kenta Maeda going for the Twins. When you look at that ERA for Kenta Maeda at 5.18, it looks pretty rough, but when you look at his last 3 starts, 17 innings of work against the Tigers, Braves, and Royals, only 3 earned runs allowed in those starts with only 1 home run and 21 strikeouts. Maeda is in much better form and has been a much better pitcher than that ERA may suggest. He's also been really good on the road with a 2.12 ERA in 17 innings with 21 strikeouts away from target field. And the Oakland A's bullpen's not been great this year, if this is in fact a bullpen game. Paul Blackburn's been listed on a few different sites as a potential option. He wasn't great down the stretch of the first half, so I like the Twins in this game on the run line, laying the 1.5 runs. And the final game for Friday's card in Major League Baseball, it's the Detroit Tigers taking on the Seattle Mariners. Eduardo Rodriguez and Luis Castillo are your projected starters. We knew this Mariners team had a good pitching staff with a good starting rotation and a strong bullpen, but the offense was always the problem for Seattle. They play in a pitcher-friendly ballpark, so it's not too much of an issue, but the Mariners offense started to get going towards the end of that first half. We saw against the Tampa Bay Rays 8 runs, 7 runs, against the Giants 6 runs, and 6 runs again in 2 victories. Against the Astros, their division rivals, 5 runs and a 5-1 win, 10 runs and a 10-1 win, and they took the series 3-1 in that 4-game set in Houston. The Mariners are playing good baseball now, and they're facing Eduardo Rodriguez, who struggled quite a bit in his last outing, giving up 5 earned runs against the Oakland A's of all teams. 2 home runs allowed in that game. It was a 12-3 Tigers loss, and the Mariners' numbers against lefties have been solid. Castillo, he had some issues here and there. His last outing was really strong, though, against the Astros. 7 innings, no earned runs in that game. I think he pitches well in this start, where he's pitched better at T-Mobile Park this year. Give me the Seattle Mariners on the run line to end the night. And that's it. Those are the games for Friday in Major League Baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. But don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.